if you're living with anxiety, pain, depression, you can't fully experience joy. You can't fully experience the present moment. You can't fully be happy. And so when I was suffering, especially with pain, I was in the moment and the pain in my back would just strike me out of nowhere. And I'd be in a situation where I was enjoying the moment and it would just pull me right out of it. And all my awareness would go to that pain. And, I had so much pain for so long. There's even some parts of my body that would start to convulse because I was dealing with so much pain for so much time that my body was constantly sending me these signals. And so our body is consistently talking to us. And so if we're not dealing with these states of pain, anxiety, depression, it's going to continue calling us. And it's going to continue calling us even louder if we don't listen to it. And so that's what happened. My pain got worse, my anxiety got worse, my depression got worse. All of those things got worse until I started confronting them. And so when I was in those states, I couldn't fully utilize all my energy, all my awareness. And so I was living in a life that reflected that, where I was kind of like part of the way participating in life, just kind of going through the motions, living my 9-to-5 job, in that relationship that's good but not really, and just kind of had all these different little comforts, but I wasn't fully living. I wasn't fully there because there's a part of my own awareness that was trapped in these lower states. And so it was focusing on these negative aspects. And so we only have so much energy and awareness that we can utilize throughout the day. And so if it's bogged down by things that you're struggling with, I just remember how much time I spent trying to find a solution for my pain. And I remember trying all these different doctor visits, all these different types of therapies, you name it, I've tried it. And I spent tens of thousands of dollars doing it. And, it just took so much awareness and took so much energy out of my life. And the same thing with anxiety. When I would just get struck with anxiety and I would just get in this panic state, I wouldn't even be able to think. I wouldn't even be able to plan. Because when we're in this fight or flight state and we're living in it, you're living in the panic, you're living in the fear, you can't really plan what's next for your life. You can't really move forward because you have this weight pulling you backwards. And so if you're dealing with any of these conditions, they're like weights that are pulling us under. And so, for example, if we're in the ocean, these are weights attached to us. And so weight's going to pull us underneath the current. And sometimes it does. Sometimes you get that anxiety attack and it pulls you under. And you totally disconnect from reality because you're totally immersed in fear. Same thing with depression and pain. Those hold you back from who you truly are. And I struggled for so long because that energy that I was spending, I wasn't using to fulfill my dreams, to fulfill my passions. And even then, I wasn't able to find those until I started to get rid of my pain. Because there'd be parts of time where I couldn't even sit for periods of time and I'd just feel pain. Or I'd be sleeping and I'd feel pain. And so the detrimental aspect that I had on my life, it took so much of a toll that almost every morning I would just wake up tired because I couldn't fully rest. And I wasn't paying attention to my body. Like I was, but I wasn't. I was only focusing on the pain, but I wasn't really focused on the aspects in which I could do something with it. Because I had tried everything. And so at that point, you know, when you tried everything for 15, 18 years for something, it's kind of hard to conjure that it's possible to become free of this. Because I was so burdened by it, burdened just by the existence of it. Whenever it would come into my body, I'd be like, shoo, you know, don't bother me. And that made it worse. Because whatever you give attention to, whatever you focus on grows. And so it was really until I started to become my own therapist, my own doctor, because none of these other treatments were working. Nothing. You know, the same thing with the medication. You know, it'd cover the symptoms, but underneath that numbness, it was all there. It was just slightly muted. And that aspect where it was slightly muted, I could still feel that. So it was taking me away from part of my day. How's your day? And so it would take me away from what I was doing in the moment. And so every single situation, I wasn't that present. I wasn't fully there. And so, you know, reflecting back on this, I just remember so many times, especially when I was depressed, I just spent so much time just loathing in this energy. And we become addicted to the space because we don't think there is a solution. And so we just accept it. But the thing is, everybody has the ability to be pain-free, anxiety-free, depression-free. Everybody has the ability to feel joy, to feel happiness, to feel peace. But when you've lived with it for so long, it makes it seem impossible. And so there's a certain point in my life where I started to become really spiritual. And I literally just, you know, prayed for solutions. Because I tried everything and I would just get so tired. I wouldn't be able to fully do my workouts. I wouldn't be able to fully really do anything because of the pain I was dealing with. Because I'd feel massive pain afterwards. And that massive pain would keep me from sleeping. And so I was just trapped. And so reflecting back on it is I was just stuck in this loop. Stuck in this loop of non-possibility, pain, depression, anxiety, ADHD, all these things that are wrong, focusing on them. But back to what I was saying before is, I was getting really spiritual and I was giving up hope, and I was just like, this is a part of me. This is just who I am. This is what I have. I've had this pain since I was 16, depression since I was 14, anxiety since then as well, even longer. That's just when I was clinically diagnosed. But it came to a point where I just called, and I was just like, whatever higher power at that time, I didn't really believe in anything at that time. And I was just like, God, just help me from this. Show me the solutions to help me become free of these. And so slowly but surely, I was guided to the information so that I could release this. So I could release the pain, release the depression, release the anxiety. And so that information trickled in over time. But once I fully got the full picture of what I needed to do, my anxiety was gone after 3 weeks. And this was after almost a lifetime of anxiety. And my depression gone within 2 weeks after being clinically diagnosed at age 14. It's roughly 10 plus years, even more. And my pain was gone within 6 weeks. Once I fully received the complete picture, I was able to release my pain. And so I just remember, this is fast forward a long time after I originally prayed for that guidance. I just collapsed down in tears because I was just like, this is a miracle, I'd been struggling with these things for my whole life. And I finally tasted freedom. Freedom from these aspects. And so that completely lit me up. I just became so much more abundant in joy, in everything in life. I started to show up to life completely. Not partially like I was doing before, where I'd be in a situation, emotions would hit, pain would hit, and I'd get pulled out of it. But I was deeply immersed in life. And I literally fell in love with life again. Something, that I didn't really think was truly possible for me. And it's just these wonderful series of events. From once I got rid of these conditions to the life that I was living and how free I became, it was literally a miracle. I can't describe it any other way. I literally can't. And to be able to have that information to free myself, it was literally a godsend. I don't have any other explanation for it. I was guided to all the different things that I needed to study and learn and read. And just like I said earlier, I had to be my own doctor. I couldn't go to a specific person and be like, oh, what do I do with this? Because nobody I really knew was going through these things. And so I kind of had to concoct my own process on what to do. because I had no guidance, just the guidance from above. And so I pieced together this process and I use it to free myself. And this has been the biggest blessing. Like I said in another one of my videos the other week, is our biggest obstacles are our biggest blessings. And so the fact that I struggled with this for so long, it allows me to go through that experience, suffer through it, overcome it, so then I can utilize that information to help others. Because if I know what somebody is going through when they say that, oh, I've lived with a lifetime of pain, lived with a lifetime of depression, lived with a lifetime of anxiety, I know exactly how they feel. Because I suffered. I know what it's like to suffer. And so when you know that, it allows you to bring somebody up much quicker. Because you know exactly what you're going through. And so you know what to say, you know what things to do, you know what moves to make. You know everything. And so it makes solving these things so much easier. And it's not something that you have to go through alone. Because if you're experiencing this, it's happening for a reason. And so there's things that are being called to your attention. And so once the root cause to all this is found, everything becomes much easier to release. The pain, depression, anxiety, ADHD, anything. And so if you're struggling with this, know that there's a solution. It's not something you have to struggle with your whole entire life. It's not just, oh, I'm burdened with this, I have to carry these weights, I'm just gonna succumb to this. No. Once you let those weights go, you have the ability to fly. The ability to experience joy. The experience of being fully present without being burdened by these emotions, this pain that just comes in out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I can't do this, I'm feeling pain. Or, oh, I don't feel like doing this, I feel depressed. Or, oh, I'm feeling too anxious to do this. It's holding you back from fully living. And when I finally was able to taste the freedom, it was worth all the effort. And I had a new lease on life. Just know that it's possible. Hope you have a wonderful day.